Okay, I'm going to talk about tools I use. In the very beginning, I didn't know what I was doing, and I only had two tools. And it was these little cutters and these needle nose. And what else did I have? Oh, these bent needle nose. And I did that for years and then developed a little bit better quality work using a better flush cutter so that I can cut the ends of my wires either perfectly perpendicular to the end of the wire or at an angle so that things butt up nicely. But you don't need a lot of tools, you just need a lot of patience. These flush cutters are Lindstrom 8142. And when you cut your wire, one side of the cut will be nice and flush, but the opposite side of the wire that the remaining part of the wire will have a slight taper to it. So you always have to be focused on which finish you want for that wire. Tiny needle nose, you really need those for bending, for leaves and the flowers. Just a pair of regular cutters for cutting your wire to, in bulk. You're going to need something that's going to help hold the wires down when the glue is spreading. I've used to use my fingers, and as you know, that probably is going to be dangerous, and I've lost a lot of fingerprints on those. So, and you have to clean these off often because the glue is then now building up, and you want to keep your stuff clean. So a couple of pair of X-Acto knives comes in handy. And some different shapes of tools so that you get different bends. A tighter bend, or maybe you want to work with that shape and try to get a 90 degree. You'll never get 90 degree based on the thickness of your wire. A nice sharp pencil, or you can use one of those nice little pilot pens for marking your wire where you want to be cutting it. I use cyanacrylate, and I'm probably saying that incorrectly, but this is the very thinnest. It's very watery, which is exactly what you want because you want it to spread underneath that wire, and you want to then go down and push the wire so that it is flush with that board. If you have any gap, that means that when you're sanding it, that raised area is going to be wider, and you try to keep your wires as flat as possible. The thickness of your resin is only going to be as thick as that wire. So I like to use 18 gauge wire. And if you have a bunch of different wires and you don't know what size they are, that's what this is good for. You just stick it in whatever size you think it is, and that's not it. So let's stick it there, 18, it's 18 gauge. I've used thinner wire before, like 20 gauge. But the thinner your wire, the farther you're going to have to sand down to hit the top of that wire and expose it. So that means if I'm mixing my wire thicknesses, I'm going to have to sand down to the lowest common denominator. That means my resin is going to be more shallow. That means my colors have to be really intense, or they're going to be very pale because I now have gotten rid of most of my material in my sanding process. That's it. Oh, one more thing. I have to wear these because I'm trying to see as well as possible my buttings of my wires, and I couldn't do it without these things. And you'll go through a lot of paper towels. Okay, that's it. Watch this start getting red, and then move it. With the pickling solution. Okay, go back out. That's good. Bending the wire so it fits in here. And then just turn it back up. Oh shit. And just kind of churn things up a little bit so there's movement, just for a minute. Okay, let it sit for about 15 minutes. Okay, these have been in here for about 15 minutes. Looking pretty good. Scoop them out. They're not too hot. And they can sit in there for a few hours. Nothing happens to it. Okay, we're going to try to straighten this wire. The longer they are, the more difficult it is to get them straight. Starting off, just a little paper towel and running it between your fingers to try to straighten it out a little bit more. And then you're going to find a spot that's nice and smooth underneath. You know, there's divots underneath here, so I have to kind of work around the divots. So pretend like it's clay when you were a little kid. Roll it out. Then I'm using a metal rod that used to be an X-Acto knife, and just roll it out. Keep doing this until the whole thing is nice and straight. Use your other hand to keep it from going wonky at the other end. Around. Okay, there you go. Pretty darn good. Not a good cut. Okay, I have finished all the wires in the main body. I'm about to start doing the border, but before I do the border, here are the outer edges. I've painted them with black acrylic paint, and this will eventually get covered with a clear coat of resin. I'm also going to go back and clean out all of these spots where there's thick glue and scrape away any pencil marks that I don't want to show through any resin. This amount of wiring took me 107 hours of fun. Okay, I've got all my wiring done, and now I'm doing some final cleanup. So you can see there's pencil marks all over. There's little black lines where the dry transfer remains. So I'm going back in with a wet cotton swab, and I'm using acetone. And that is a good cleanup liquid. So just get rid of all your pencil marks, because you don't know where you're going to want to have something, maybe a light color or transparent, and since the resin is going to be so thin, you don't want the pencil marks to be showing. So you do a lot of cleanup. You also want to remove any excess buildup along the resin and along the wires. And I also am using canned air, which gets rid of all of my residue from my scraping of the glue, as you see. What else? Oh, another issue about when I'm doing my borders and I'm doing very straight wires, I am using a straight edge. I don't just go by drawing a line. I'll use a straight edge and I'll try to butt right up to it. And the real trick is not to glue the straight edge to your fiberglass board. That's it.